The White House announces TSMC will pour another $100 billion into U.S. chip making, the biggest foreign investment in the country's history.
The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America.
China hits back against a new round of U.S. tariffs with several of its own, upping the stakes in a looming trade war. Taiwan's defense minister stresses the country's strategic value as confidence in U.S. support wanes. Plus, the Trump administration pauses military aid to Ukraine, cutting off the main source of foreign support for the war-torn country. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Liao. A new deal that will see Taiwan semiconductor giant TSMC invest $100 billion in U.S. chip manufacturing will make the country stronger. That's according to Taiwan's Premier Tai. But the presidential office says the plan must help, not hurt, the country's overall competitiveness. Joyce Zeng reports.
Hello, everybody.
A big announcement from the White House as U.S. President Donald Trump and TSMC Chair and CEO C.C. Wei agree on the largest foreign direct investment in the country's history. Taiwan's TSMC unveiled that its total investment to the United States will reach $165 billion US. The move a way to avoid Trump's tariff threat of 25% or higher on imported chips, as Trump eyes a larger goal of bringing chip manufacturing to the United States.
The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America. And it'll be a big percentage of the chips made by his company. But as you know, they're based mostly in Taiwan. And they're far and away the biggest. There's nobody even close.
TSMC is the unmatched leader in making advanced semiconductors, powering cutting-edge tech like AI from customers NVIDIA and Apple. The firm's head, C.C. Wei, shared details of the plan from the White House, which includes 5 more facilities to its existing over 1,001-acre site in Phoenix, Arizona, and a center dedicated to research and development.
We are going to build 3 more new fabs after we promised 3 fabs already, and another 2 very advanced packaging fab, and most important, R&D center also in Arizona.
In recent weeks, Taiwan's all-important chip industry has been in focus following Trump's tariff threats and his repeated accusations that Taiwan stole American chip business. Though Taipei does not share official diplomatic relations with Washington, the two share robust unofficial ties. The U.S. is also Taiwan's largest arms backer in the face of a Chinese threat of invasion. In Taiwan, TSMC's leadership has created a sense of protection from external threats, a so-called silicon shield. Some fear that TSMC's expansion overseas will take away from its advantage. Taiwan's premier responding to the expansion, saying it will in fact strengthen and extend Taiwan's power.
我觉得产业界去做全球的布局，对台湾都是力量的延伸。只要在合乎国家的战略布局当中。
Meanwhile, in Washington, Trump was asked whether TSMC's added investment would, quote, minimize the impact to the U.S. in regard to the chip sector should China decide to isolate or take Taiwan by force.
This would certainly, I can't say minimize. That would be a catastrophic event, obviously. But it will at least give us a position where we have, in this very, very important business, we would have a very big part of it in the United States. So it would have a big impact if something should happen with Taiwan.
Though acknowledging a potential conflict over Taiwan as catastrophic, Trump did not say if TSMC's investment would come with U.S. security assurances for Taiwan. Trump and TSMC's Wei instead focusing on the thousands of high-paying jobs the added investment will create. Luffy Lee and Joyce Zeng for TaiwanPlus.
For more on this, Joyce Zeng spoke with Dave Nicholson, Global Technology Advisor at Futurum Group. She started by asking what the announcement reveals about TSMC's relationship with the U.S.
I think you really have to be fair and look at this across the three administrations. The goal has been the same for the Trump administration and the Biden administration. The methods may be different, but the end goal is the same, to have some measure of security in the semiconductor supply line in the U.S., and then some domestic support for the economy. But if you look at overall TSMC production, I think analysts say, I think we're looking at somewhere between 5 and 10% of overall production would end up eventually being in the U.S. So it's not a massive hit to the Taiwanese domestic market. It was estimated to be about 5% before the estimate today. It's hard to say if the estimate today, or if the announcement today means that will triple with inflation-adjusted dollars and everything else. But I think it's fair to say that it's still low double digits at the most.
The main stakeholders here are obviously the US, TSMC, and Taiwan. What are each getting out of this investment, and what would you say is the impact on Taiwan's so-called Silicon Shield?
This is manufacturing. So the prowess that TSMC has, the dominance that TSMC has globally, I don't think is affected either way. On balance, the main benefit is to the U.S. domestically in terms of jobs. I think that the relationship between the United States and Taiwan is as important as it ever has been. So if there are benefits that I can see in terms of tighter relationship in the event that things get more worrisome from in terms of pressure from China, this can be functionally the equivalent of a closer relationship with the United States. I think this level investment is a good investment in Taiwan's security, and it does strengthen that shield that you're talking about. But it's a legitimate concern moving forward. You don't want to give up a lot more in the future.
That was Dave Nicholson, Global Technology Advisor at Futurum Group. China has responded to Donald Trump's latest 10% tariff on Chinese goods, announcing tariffs of its own on several U.S. products. Louise Watt is following developments for us from Taipei. Louise, what exactly is Beijing's plan here?
Well, Leslie, Beijing said it would hit back, and it has. It's placed additional tariffs of 10 to 15% on U.S. agricultural and food imports, including things like chicken and soybeans, pork, beef, and so forth. Now, China doesn't want to see a trade war, but it's responding to new tariffs from U.S. President Donald Trump. Since in the 6 weeks he's been back in power, he's now placed an additional 20% tariffs on Chinese imports. Now, today at a press conference in the National People's Congress, China's legislature, a spokesman said that China won't accept U.S. threats and oppression. So what kind of impact are these latest rounds of tariffs going to have? Well, the number one market for U.S. agricultural exports is China, so analysts expect them to have a significant impact on bilateral trade and also on American exporters and farmers. So China's move, it's upping the stakes in these escalating trade battles, but it probably still hopes to find a way to negotiate its way out of them.
As you say, it's up the stakes, and China is expected to unveil its growth target for the year ahead at its legislature's annual meeting on Wednesday. So are the tariffs going to affect that growth target?
Well, tariffs aren't the only or even the biggest issue affecting China's economy. It's been in a period of heavily slowing down since even before the pandemic. And tomorrow, China is expected to unveil a growth target of around 5%, which is already being seen as ambitious. China has to boost growth. It has to also attract foreign investment back to the country, which has been stagnating. And it also has to try to somehow persuade Chinese consumers to spend more. Now, that's an effort that it's been going on for years, but that now takes on more urgency because of these tariffs. So trade battles with the US, its largest trading partner, are only going to pile on pressure onto the Chinese economy and its leadership.
All right, well, thank you for that update, Louise. That was Louise Watt live in Taipei. The U.S. has imposed 25% trade tariffs on Mexico and Canada. U.S. President Donald Trump had earlier threatened to hit the two U.S. trade partners with import tariffs, but pushed his plans back by a month after negotiations. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he will impose reciprocal tariffs on the U.S., while Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said that there is a plan to counter the U.S. trade penalties. Taiwan's defense minister says Taiwan is vital to U.S. interests due to its strategic location in Asia, and that Washington can't afford to lose out on the Indo-Pacific. His comment comes just days after unprecedented scenes unfolded in the Oval Office during Ukraine leader Volodymyr Zelensky's visit. That triggered concerns over what a U.S. commitment to Taiwan would look like. Jaime Okan has more.
Tensions around Taiwan are heating up, with Chinese military ships and aircraft stepping up operations around Taiwan like never before. During a media roundtable on Monday, Taiwan's defense minister, Wellington Koo, expressed his concern over China's increasingly aggressive behavior. Most recently, a sudden and unannounced shooting drill in international waters just 75 kilometers away from the major port city of Kaohsiung.
最近这一次在这个我们高雄的外海，这是一个很典型的一个灰色地带的一个袭岛，那也加大对我们军事威慑的力度。那这个我想配合这些其他一些非军事的手段，来持续对我们压迫。
This rare media roundtable comes at a time of growing anxiety in Taipei about the way U.S. President Donald Trump is approaching foreign policy. Just days before, much of the world was blown away by the fierce exchange between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Trump over the war in Ukraine. When asked how Taiwan feels about the exchange and the U.S.'s commitment to its defense, the minister was confident that Taiwan and Asia as a whole is much too important.
美国它的所需要面对的军事安全的层面来看，我不认为美国可以。 就说 can afford 去失去印太这个区域，那所以我们就因此应该有共同的目标。
Koo says that Taiwan's location in the Indo-Pacific is vital to U.S. interests. He says Taiwan sits at the center of the so-called First Island Chain, a strategic line of islands that stretches from Japan down to Vietnam. If Taiwan is lost, this would make it harder to contain China's military. But given the Trump administration's transactional approach, there's growing consensus in the U.S. that Taiwan should take greater steps to enhance its own security.
Taiwan needs to place itself in a position where, yes, it's great to hope for the best, as clearly the minister was suggesting, but it also needs to plan and prepare for the worst. And I think myself and others have been long calling on Taiwan to spend more on its defense.
While it's far from guaranteed that the U.S. would intervene directly in a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, there is concern from Washington that Taiwan isn't moving fast enough to boost its defense, with repeated calls to raise spending and incorporate more realistic combat training.
The question in my mind is the degree to which Taiwan is an essential or existential piece of our strategy for dealing with China. And there, I think the jury is very much still out. I think that if the Trump administration has to play the role of convincing Taiwan to find a way to convince itself to take its own defense seriously, Taiwan is already in trouble.
As both Taiwan and the U.S. work towards their own interests, a clear plan to deter China together seems to be missing. That's despite Defense Minister Koo warning that a war in Taiwan would not just affect regional security, but could also shape a new world order. Scott Huang and Jaime Okan in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The United States is stopping military aid to Ukraine indefinitely. Though the White House says this isn't the total end of aid, a rift between Presidents Trump and Zelensky means it could be some time before Washington restarts its help. John Van Trieste has more.
Ukrainian firefighters arrive at yet another scene of destruction. This freshly released footage shows the aftermath of an apparent Russian drone attack in Odessa, which the local government says cut power. And it shows how even 3 years into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, even areas far from the front lines aren't safe from attack. For Ukraine, things are about to get harder. Relations with its main backer through this war, the United States, have taken a turn for the worse. Now, just days after giving Ukraine's President Zelensky an icy reception in the White House, Washington is pausing all military support for Kyiv, even the shipment of equipment already waiting just across the border in Poland. The White House says it's just a freeze, not necessarily a total end to aid. But its condition for turning the tap back on, what it calls a good faith commitment to peace, is likely to widen the rift between Ukraine's President Zelensky and U.S. President Donald Trump. Despite talks of peace and even a Europe-backed peace proposal, Zelensky says the end of the war is far off. He says any peace must be a fair one, backed with guarantees for Ukraine's protection.
Відсутність гарантій безпеки для України 11 років тому дозволили Росії почати з окупації Криму та війни на Донбасі. Потім відсутність гарантій безпеки дозволила Росії розпочати повномасштабне вторгнення. І зараз через відсутність визначених гарантій безпеки саме Росія тримає цю війну в розпалі. І це бачить весь світ, і це визнає весь світ.
This has reached Trump's ears, and he's not happy about it.
President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying.
Ukraine's parliament is trying to ease tensions. It's made a conciliatory statement thanking Trump and the U.S. Congress for their support. It reads in part, "The Ukrainian people desire peace more than anyone else in the world, and believe that the personal role of President Donald Trump and his peacekeeping efforts will be decisive in the swift cessation of hostilities and the achievement of peace for Ukraine, Europe, and the entire world." Whether this has any effect on Trump's decision or on a proposed minerals for aid deal, Russia will for now have a chance to pressure an enemy that suddenly finds itself without much of the support it had once been able to count on. Justin Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's main opposition party, the Kuomintang, has proposed increasing military salaries to address a shortage of volunteers. The opposition says the voluntary soldiers' pay should increase from around $300 per month to just over $900, citing the low wage for the lack of recruits. The Kuomintang has also put forward a monthly pay increase for compulsory service from around $650 to over $860. The military has sought the opinion of Taiwan's executive branch on the opposition's proposal. The search continues for justices for Taiwan's top court, months after nearly half its seats were left empty, leaving the court unable to function. At least 2 candidates now need approval from the legislature to get the court back up and running. Tiffany Wong reports.
Once a top prosecutor who led a case against a former First Lady, 68-year-old Eric Chen may now be called out of retirement to serve on Taiwan's top court. He's one of several former and current legal professionals that Taiwan's justice agencies are recommending the president nominate to the Constitutional Court, after nearly half the justices finished their terms last October. But others whose names were put forward had mixed feelings about their potential nomination. If President Lai Ching-te picks them, they'll face the unenviable task of responding to lawmakers' questions about how they've applied the Constitution in their casework. Last year, 7 nominees underwent heated confirmation hearings, but were ultimately all rejected. Opposition legislators grilled them over their stances on the death penalty, a divisive topic in Taiwan. That first round of picks mostly came from academic backgrounds, but those on the new list of recommendations have all served as prosecutors or judges and may fare better in hearings.
总的来讲，这些实务界的人在他们的岗位上原则上都是认真的，但是在历届的大法官里面，比较有进步思想的应该是学者出身比较多，反而是在实务界的偏向保守，但也不一定啦。
In recent years, the Constitutional Court has ruled on major social issues like the death penalty and same-sex marriage. It also can rule on whether legislation is constitutional, a power ever more crucial since opposition parties now hold a majority in the legislature. President Liao must choose carefully. The court has been effectively paralyzed by new amendments requiring 10 justices to issue a ruling. And once enough justices are confirmed, they'll have a major task: ruling on the constitutionality of these amendments themselves. Hank Shui and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Singapore is investigating if a server fraud case involved NVIDIA chips and where that hardware was sent. 3 men, including a Chinese national, were charged last week with allegedly defrauding server suppliers by misrepresenting the final receipt of the hardware. Singaporean media have linked the case to the alleged movement of NVIDIA's AI chips to Chinese artificial intelligence firm DeepSeek.
They supplied to Singapore-based companies, and from Singapore it went to Malaysia. The question is whether Malaysia was a final destination or from Malaysia it went to somewhere else, which we do not know for certain at this point.
This case comes amid a broader crackdown on Chinese companies evading U.S. chip export controls with the help of third parties. Japan is fighting massive wildfires that local media say are the biggest it's seen in decades. Nearly 5,000 residents were evacuated from the northeastern region of Japan where the blaze began. Firefighters have been battling the fire for nearly a week. Japan's military has also stepped in to help waterbombing the area to contain the flames. Japan's fire agency says the fire has spread over 26 square kilometers. Pope Francis's condition has once again worsened as he battles pneumonia in hospital. The 88-year-old pontiff has suffered 2 episodes of acute respiratory failure. Doctors cleared his airways and put him back on a ventilator to help him breathe. The Vatican says he remains focused, alert, and cooperative. The leader of the Catholic Church has spent the last 2 weeks at a hospital in Rome. In Taiwan, Catholic followers have joined millions worldwide praying for the Pope's recovery. Walk around any part of Taiwan and you'll be surrounded by a diversity of different building styles. A new documentary series is encouraging people to pay closer attention to the country's architecture and what made it that way. Millie Hughes reports.
The Taiwanese identity is complex, with many powerful influences running throughout its history. Several of Taiwan's leading architects have created a documentary series to tease apart the different aspects through what they know best: architecture.
而黑潮这部电影正是企图从历史变迁中寻找台湾建筑的身份认同的可能性因为建筑是空间、时间跟人间的对话，建筑是有生命的，是生活的容器，也是文化的具体呈现。
The title, Deep Current, is inspired by the Japanese term kuroshio, or black tide. This tide refers to a powerful North Pacific current. The architects behind this series believe this is the perfect metaphor to describe Taiwan's long history of multiculturalism. Taiwan has seen settlers from Portugal, Spain, and the Dutch East India Company in the 16th century, followed by rulers under China and Japan. And throughout this entire period, Christian missionaries. They all used the deep current to come and go, each leaving their legacy in the form of physical spaces. The 8-part series invites viewers on a journey across time, beginning in 19th century Taiwan under Japanese occupation and ending in the modern day, unpacking a wide range of buildings from neo-colonial Japanese palaces to postmodern abstract churches. The location of the premiere pays reference to Taiwan's diverse historic and architectural influences, even taking place here today at Taipei's Huashan 1914 Creative Park, previously used as a sake brewery and winery. But the main principle behind this series goes far beyond architecture.
或许从黑潮的隐喻去理解台湾的深层流变的动态文化创意核心，我们的建筑可以摆脱意识形态的困扰，形式主义的追潮心态，回到自己的自然的环境，能够更加开放的去思考我是谁。
Through these present and left behind physical spaces, Deep Current highlights the beauty and diversity that shape Taiwan's complex architectural landscape and its multifaceted history. But most importantly, they hope that the underlying takeaway hidden deep within the current is what will resonate the most with viewers from both Taiwan and around the globe, the celebration of an ever-changing identity in a multicultural world. Howard Chang and Millie Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Episode 1 of Deep Current Architecture of Taiwan is now available to stream online at the TaiwanPlus Docs YouTube channel and on the TaiwanPlus website. And thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we take you to Bulgaria, where locals light a bonfire and spin fireballs to mark Shrovetide. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.